Thank you for producer for just starting the recording. Okay. Thank you, Jay and Elizabeth, for being here today. We've got a couple other people signed up who are going to be showing up. Thank you, Elliot, for coming today. I am really grateful for, and thank you to our presenters for doing this. I'm really grateful for you all doing this. This idea came from, I read an article about math and kind of innovations in math that I sent to the math department, and Patrick Vernon actually emailed me right back and said, I feel so validated because this one bullet point I do. And it was just trying, and the name of the article was like small, one small thing you can do in your class. And so I'm like, well, this is a really cool idea, right? To share with each other what is one small thing that we do that's had an impact. So I have, we have the panels today. Quincy is Hodges, right? Thank you, very good. Quincy Hodges, our new colleague from MassCom, and Mark Stoll, who is our associate director for CAT and also in the theology department, and then Geedy Fruity, who is going to be joining us electronically, and so she may or may not be having electronic troubles. Welcome to fall 2022. So what I've asked them each to do is take about 10 minutes and just kind of describe what they do, its impact, and then we can ask questions. Then we'll have Q&A, and then also I would like everybody who's here to kind of share small things that they do too. Is that better language than one small thing? Okay. So I am gonna not set a timer per se because we've got a little more flexibility than we thought because we only have 3 presenters. And we will, I will let whoever would like to go first. Who would like to go first? One of you.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So yeah, this is definitely one small thing for sure. So Dr. Roberts, the head of the department, she emailed me and asked me to do this. I'm like, I don't know what. Yeah. To do what? One thing I did find that's one small thing was to pretty much, should I be looking here or here? I don't know. Like,
yeah, us and then the camera can see you.
Okay.
That's why we have you all face the camera.
Okay, sorry. Feel like I'm on TV.
You're used to it though, right?
Kind of, sort of, but so one small thing that I noticed that I think students really like was me switching up my assignments. And what I mean by that, I'm probably like all of you, probably wrote a lot when you were an undergrad, right? You probably wrote a lot of essays, you probably wrote a lot of lit reviews, proposals, and the list goes on. Book reports, short stories, and as a journalist, I did a lot of writing. I did so much writing, right? I did so much writing throughout undergrad and through graduate school, right? You have to write dissertation, you have to write academic articles, and so that's how I was trained, like probably many of you all. So I took that with me to the classroom. So this is how I'm going to teach cinema, journalism. This is how I'm going to teach. This is how I'm going to teach intro to MassCom. This is how I'm going to teach any class I taught. This is how I'm going to teach because this is how I was trained. This is what I know. And I was come to find out everyone does not love writing. Everyone does not love journalism like I do, right? Like I was born to do that. Like I love to do that, right? But they don't share the same passion of love. And then I really was engaged with that early on when I first taught when I was in grad school at LSU. A lot of the students, younger students for the last 3 to 4 years, 5 years, they were not coming into the mass comm world, the program, looking to be traditional print journalists. They were more visual learners. They wanted to, learn about social media. They wanted to learn about all these things that I was not trained in the early 2000s. I was still trained in the old way of thinking, right? So I took that old way of thinking with me. But I soon found out that my students like, no, we want to do other things. We want to express ourselves in another way. So now I come to Xavier And I spent the last year as a visiting lecturer, and I'm thankful to be hired on as full-time over the summer. I engage with a lot of non-mass comm students. It's a lot of STEM students on campus. So again, they're not really wanting, in the journalism world, they don't want to write a bunch of essays and term papers. And I still kind of force fed it. So I'm like, you're going to write, you're going to write, you're going to write. And I'm going to, look for grammar errors. I'm going to look for spelling errors, and I'm going to treat you as a reporter, right? And you like a reporter. And it's like, I still got kind of a negative feedback. Like, this is too much writing. I had students say that. So one small thing, sorry for taking too long.
Yep.
I began to introduce other types of ways to deliver my assignments, right? So the big one, or the small thing I did was, last year I taught the Black Cinema course, and for their final, and I still had writing, that's a funny thing, right? I still had them write a lot of essays throughout the semester, but at the end, I had them do a visual analysis of a film, right? For the whole rest of the semester, I had them writing about film, so almost like film reviews. They didn't quite like that. They like watching the film, but writing these film essays, they're like tired of it. So I introduced the video element, and they loved it. I don't know if I can play an example, but the students loved it, and I got some really quality work. So one thing I would say, how can you rethink your current assignment, how you're delivering it, right? So I took that example and I applied it to my other courses as well. So instead of writing an essay, can they create a TikTok? Can they create a video on YouTube? Can they pitch? Can they pitch a new idea? Can they create a meme, right? Can they do something visual that's not the typical, right? And I still have them write quite a bit, right? So it's not like I got rid of writing essays. I still lean on that pretty heavily, but I have introduced other ways to deliver my assignment. So I do have an example, but I don't have to play it, but
Oh, yeah, we'll get up where you can play it.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, but maybe when the next person goes, we can hook you up while the next person going. We've got a little time if you want to follow questions now. We'll get a bit Q&A at the end, but
Well, I'm just curious if there are parameters for the TikTok or whatever. Like, how much guidance do you give them about here's what you need to cover?
Yes. Good question. I do give them parameters and criteria and say, hey, I want you to highlight these 5 to 7 things. And I try to keep the time limit under 5 minutes. So sometimes I say 3 minutes, right? Because it can get quite monotonous if everyone's doing a 10-minute synopsis, right? So that can be a laborious thing. So I do try to keep them on time. Highlight the big ideals, and then I have them sometimes show it in class, and then we can have a discussion between them and the rest of the class too.
Yeah.
So
it's really cool.
Do you use? That's what I was going to ask too. Hang on, I'm getting Janice in here to help us. Janice, there you go. I just did that. All right. Do you use a rubric like for the grading? For the assessment of that, to be sure.
Oh, for sure. Yes, I have a rubric for it. Typically, my rubrics are very just, if you hit the main, if you hit the main ideals, the main points, stay on topic, bring in outside sources. You cited some credible. It's not just them talking about sharing their feelings. I do like that, but I want you to, hey, where did you get this information?
Evidence.
Is it valid? Yeah, it's evidence. So as long as that element is there, that's pretty much covers my rubric.
It's really cool because even maybe 10 years ago, students didn't always have access to what they would need to produce that. But now everybody has video making equipment in their pocket.
Exactly.
It's really
bringing it with them to class.
Yeah. I'm watching it in my class. Great.
Yeah, that's really cool. I want to, in the Q&A, I'll share one other thing. Do you want to?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say I did one semester. It was during an election period, and so I asked the students to do a political ad for a particular theologian. And,
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I realized because their commercials were so shallow that maybe they were just following the political ad, but maybe they didn't know that much about theologians. So we would look at them in class, and because I was a little shocked at what they didn't know. And so these kinds of things are really good for people or your students to demonstrate that they know something or don't. You know?
Right, for sure.
And it's just kind of a fun way.
Yeah, they're definitely more engaged.
Yeah.
Thank you, Quincy. We'll come back and ask questions of everybody. If you want to sneak up there with Janice, she's going to help you. And then once we get there, we can look at that sample too. Thank you, Janice, our producer. And Bart's our voice in the chat. So thank you, CAT team. Okay, Gidi, welcome. Nice to see you, Gidi. Thank you. Sorry you had the wrong link. Glad you're with us now.
Did I send her the wrong link?
I mean, that's what I saw in the chat. Okay. Welcome, though, Gidi. Would you like to go next?
Sure. I also have a PowerPoint that I could share,
Great.
so that you could see what I'm saying as well, since I'm on Zoom. So yes, thanks for inviting me. I'm Giti Parudi. I'm a Spanish instructor in the Department of Languages, and I've been at Xavier for 12 years, just by way of introduction. But here, language teaching offers a variety of ways to do cool pedagogical stuff. And one thing I have done recently that has been working really well in my Spanish 2051 course, which is Spanish for medical professionals, is that I've added a virtual conversation exchange component. This component gives students the opportunity to practice their Spanish with native speakers at ITESO University in Guadalajara, Mexico, as well as allows them to learn about the healthcare system, culture, and lifestyle in Mexico, and maybe even make new friends through their conversation. We do this conversation exchange using Zoom, and we use the breakout rooms. So each session has a different theme, and students prepare in advance for the sessions. In today's increasingly globally connected world, this type of virtual exchange really speaks to students because it is engaging and allows them to learn more about another culture. I'm a big proponent of experiential learning, and today's technology allows students to go on a mini study abroad right from their desks. Students have really enjoyed this activity, and I recommend incorporating virtual exchange and cross-cultural dialogue in your courses if it is possible. And I will also say that this language definitely lends itself to this type of exchange, but this type of intercultural connection could be used in other courses as well. It doesn't just have to be a language exchange. For example, people could compare and contrast research methods, or could talk about sustainability efforts in their countries. There's just a wide variety of ways that one could incorporate this into their course. Here are some ways that students have described the activity. So lots of words here. I asked them at one point to use 3 words to describe the activity, and this is why these are just words at the top. This is words that the students came up with, and then also in other assessments they wrote a little bit more, so you could see that at the bottom. But definitely I've gotten great feedback. They really enjoy it, and it gives them the chance to communicate, but also learn about a different culture. And since it's a healthcare course, healthcare professionals course, they also learn about the healthcare system. And it was really interesting when COVID-19 hit, because they could talk about different ways that their countries were handling the pandemic and how they were coping and things like that.
Thank you. Do you mind like sharing what a typical class is when you do that? Like what's that like? Yeah.
Sure. So all of the students come into the Zoom, and we always have them put the university behind their name so that we can see, right away which university they are. Are they Xavier students or are they ITESO students? And then we put them into the breakout room. So it could be, depending on the class sizes, it could be like 2 Xavier students and 1 Ateso students, or like 3 Ateso students even and 1 Xavier student. So it depends on the class sizes, but we break them up as best as we can. And then we do 30 minutes in English, and then we switch to 30 minutes in Spanish and vice versa. So the students learning English in Guadalajara can practice their English as well with our students, and then our students can practice Spanish. And it gives them a lot of perspective, to see that, okay, these students are also struggling to use a language that I feel comfortable in. So it gives them this kind of empathetic viewpoint as well. And then we come back after those, no, I said 30 minutes. It's usually this 20 minutes. So we allow for a little bit of time at the end of the course, at the end of the class, and they come back and sort of just we recap what happened, and then that's it. And then they do a reflective activity for their homework.
And do you give them, and sorry, other people have questions, do you give them a specific prompt, like when they're in the breakout rooms, they have a specific prompt to work on?
Actually, we don't. We give them a theme, and then they prepare their questions. We say, okay, here's the theme, prepare your questions in advance, come in with all the topics that you want, but we want it to be really organic. So we don't want them to like read their questions or feel like they're scripted. We want them to just have this theme, and then let the conversation go organically so that they could practice with the language and the grammar that they have. But it's a very good idea, Elizabeth. Students have actually asked in the past, like, could we have a prompt? So I think that could be something to experiment as well in the future.
Yeah, I think especially people who might have some social anxiety or peer anxiety, it might be just nice to something to get them started.
Yes.
Do you find, other people ask questions, I got more questions, but go ahead.
Do you do this during class time, I guess you would have to do that?
Yes, it's during class time so that we could be sure that they're all available. We don't have to, plan another time that they have free. So yeah, it's during the 50 minutes of class time. We do it about 3 times per semester, so once a month.
That's great.
And you just knew the other professor and made that connection and make sure your schedules lined up? Is that how it works?
Yes, I reached out to the university, ITESO, and their department for English learning, and made the connection so that we could have this virtual classroom.
My last one. Do you find, that's so interesting. I love that idea that they're also getting to see other students struggle with English, right? And get this, and that's got to be empowering then. It's not just me. Do you find that they correct each other? Like, will they correct each other and help each other with the grammar?
Yes, definitely. So that's a really cool thing to see. So when our students are struggling with Spanish, then the Ateso students help them. And when they're struggling with English, then our students are very helpful as well. They jump in, they help them, they give them different ways and different phrases to say it. So like even cool ways.
Nice. All right, thank you, Katie. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll come back and do some broader Q&A and go one more presenter.
Sure.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks for zooming in. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, Mark, would you like to go?
Yeah, Bart, you don't need to put on screen what I sent you earlier because I've switched gears a little bit. I tend to do.
Okay, that's fine.
The little thing I did was that my students consistently point out that I require in my Christian faith class and in my comparative religion class that they attend a religious service from a tradition other than their own. So typically, I get on my evaluations that students love this. And the good thing about one of the bonuses of COVID is now, because so many services are online and also archived, I don't care when it was done, students can watch it online, which is a lot more comfortable than driving to a place where you've never been and being the only person that looks like you in the location. So my students, even when we did that, they would go together in a group and kind of feel a little bit better about that. But one of the things that I noticed was that was the highest, that I had the highest number of positive comments about that on my evaluations. Not even close. You know, I was thinking, you know, my brilliant lectures, you're not, that doesn't empower you and inspire you? Okay, so what I did, students are always looking for extra credit, so I require 3 essays. And so what I did was, I thought if this is one of their favorite things to do and they're learning from it, that's great. I don't care. I don't care that I'm going to use this as extra credit. So what I do is I tell them if they want to go to another, and these visits require 2-page single-spaced paper that, you know, outlines everything that happened and the location and the people there and all of that. So my extra credit was, if you want to do another one of those, you can use that and your lowest essay and average them together and add points. Because, you know, writing the essay again, I think that might, you know, be helpful for them. I'm not a real advocate for extra credit, but I thought if this is something they really like, something they really learn from, I'm going to go ahead and help them out with this because it is a really good, enriching, you know, experience because our students, and then word gets around, our students, there's a mosque in London that has a really awesome service, so they can attend that mosque. There's a really good Buddhist temple in San Francisco, and because they're archived, they don't have to go to something current because some religious traditions are back to face-to-face, but there's all of that information online. And the great thing about it too is in their paper that they turn in, they give me the link. So I get to watch them and I get to see what's going on. And then that way, if there's something I need to explain that they left out on their paper because they didn't really understand what was going on, I can talk to them about that and help them with that. So that's fine. And one more small thing from Tom Bonner. I had dinner with him once. He's a really nice guy. I didn't know him until like 2 years ago. And he sent a one small thing suggestion for everybody, which I thought was typical of Tom Bonner. He's a great guy. He said that he writes his syllabi from his own personal standpoint, and that helps the students connect better with him.
Ooh,
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, instead of saying you're required, students are required to attend a religious service, he would put in, I've always enjoyed seeing different kinds of religious services, and I think you would too. So here's an opportunity for you to do that. And that's a better connection with the professor, and I'm going to do that.
would you mind asking him to communicate that with you too? If he could send us a sample and we can put it on the resource page
Sure.
for this workshop?
Sure.
And then we can share it.
Yeah.
And Quincy, Tom Bonner is a professor emeritus from Xavier, from the English department, who's been here. Oh my gosh, he's been retired for
Oh, yeah.
all the time I've been gone, and he still teaches every now and then. You know, he still teaches every semester. Retired, beautiful man.
Yeah, and he is what you would think of what an English professor ought to be able to talk about and think about. He's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say is your primary objective with the assignment that you talked about?
My primary objective is to get them to understand their own tradition if they have one. Why do they do those kinds of things in their services? That, Methodists have, Presbyterians and a lot of high church traditions have a lot of structure, and those have a purpose behind them, and most of us don't know what that is. So when we see a different tradition doing different things, then we can say, and one of the things that I always find is that when students who are non-Baptist will go to a Baptist service, they don't mention at the end of the service at a Baptist church, you were invited to accept Jesus and become a Christian that day. That's not done in, Catholic or Methodist or Episcopal or Lutheran.
Yeah.
And I want them to think about why that is. And so my goal really is to help them, if they don't have a tradition, to understand how that service relates to the theological understanding. And if they do have a tradition, to kind of explore that more and also see another way of doing it.
Do you think, I can see real advantages to the online stuff, because, I was thinking about how awkward that can be, but also I could see, probably not, but I could, my anxiety would envision the place feeling a little resentful that, oh, you're here just, like an anthropologist or something. But do you think you lose anything that they don't go in person?
Yeah, I think you do lose because very rarely does anybody have a negative reception. And I explain to them that I know about all the traditions, and if you're not accepting and friendly toward them, you are not doing what your religion has called you to do. And I've had students who were, just stumbled on a Jewish service and they had a bat mitzvah and they said, they invited us to that, the food was great, everybody wanted to dance with us, and things like that. And so generally the reception is, wow, we're glad you're here. I've had one negative experience. I've not had a lot other than, two negative experiences. One was because I usually we'll give them a list of places to go. But one of my good friends who has a PhD in theology had he's Lutheran, and my students came, and when they went up for communion, they did this, and he didn't know what that meant. They were Catholic. Yeah, I know. Wow. And they were Catholic, and so my friend Scott pulled their hand down and gave them. Oh, wow. And so that next Monday, the students said, this dude force-fed Jesus to us. And so I called Scott. He said, well, I didn't know what the hell they were doing. It was like, so that was the only bad experience. And I explained
also maybe learned, oh wow, I assumed this was universal.
Yeah,
right. So now they can go to Scott's church and be okay. But that was, and the only other thing is real quickly, they went to a Nation of Islam temple, and they were headed down for guns. Yeah. And the students were freaked out by that. And I said, so every semester now, I will say I won't say every semester, but there's a difference between a mosque and a Nation of Islam mosque, and you need to be aware that this is what's going to happen.
I wonder, I'm thinking about, and do you want to get your stuff set up while we're in the background now? Because I'm wondering about yours and Gide's together. I wonder if there's a way you could even have people from other theology courses, not necessarily even international, but then get in groups to talk about, you could find a professor who also does this. Yeah. And then compare kind of experiences. That could be really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be emailing some friends this afternoon, because that is a cool idea.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. I really liked that. I'm thinking about There's some cool stuff you can do with psychology too, the logistics of does your class meet at the same time.
Right.
But it's just a great way to get students talking to peers about that.
Yeah.
Well, there's technology stuff happening in the background. Those of you who are online, we're trying to get Quincy's example to play. Well, that's how.
There it is. That'll work.
I think we're ready. So Quincy, Janice is going to help make sure this is shared.
Okay.
Right? And then if you will set the context
Yes.
of what this assignment is for us, so we'll know what we're looking at, and people online will know what we're looking at.
For sure. So thank you. So this assignment really is delivered through essay. I would give them an assignment, give them directions, and they would write. They would go home and watch a film or a TV show, and they would write a film analysis, pretty much like a 2-page essay. And I would grade them there. But this is that assignment, but delivered through video, right? And this came came at the end of the semester. So this is almost like a final project. They do take a final exam, but outside of the classroom, they would do a final project. So this is the result of that. And this student here is I guess he's a junior now. He was a sophomore when he took this class, my Black Cinema course. So we don't have to watch the whole thing. It's about 10 minutes. It's pretty long. So maybe we could watch 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
Thousands, we were in a golden age of sitcoms. We're talking about great shows like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, The Office, How I Met Your Mother, staples in the history of television. And while there was a surplus of shows giving us a look at Caucasian middle-class American hijinks, there were almost none that gave us a look into how broke white people lived. Like Malcolm in the Middle. I love this show, from the comedy to the dramatic moments to the way the show just seemed so authentic. But as much as I loved watching Malcolm, Reese's Puff, and Dewey Decimal System, peeping the struggle from their perspective didn't even come close to seeing it through the eyes of a kid like me. Enter in the show Everybody Hates Chris. My name is Amadeus, and today we're going to take an in-depth look at the hit classic, covering the show's creation, content, commentary, and other words beginning with C. So let's take a seat and relax as we talk about centered around the well-meaning but trouble-attracted younger version of Chris Rock. Everybody Hates Chris is a show that recounts the titular character's childhood/teenage experience. Set in 1982 to 1987, even though Chris Rock was actually born in 1967. We know you're old, Mr. Rock. The show shows Chris as he deals with girl issues, familial problems, academic issues, and whatever antagonizing force the writers wanted him to suffer through that week. With an overbearing but caring mother, a strict yet understanding father, a brother and sister who cause nothing but trouble for a brother they at times admire, Chris and his best friend Greg battle the purgatory that is Chris's life. Co-created by Chris Rock and director Ollie Leroy, also known for his debut film, The Obituary of Toon Johnson, Everybody Hates Chris was created with the intention of both giving off an authentic vibe of the 80s, as well as making the cast of characters feel authentic to its setting, which happened to be in Bed-Stuy, located in Brooklyn, New York. From the way that the characters talk to their clothes, I personally get a New York feel, even though, I've never really just been to New York like that. I've never lived there. I've visited, but that's besides the point. With Chris Rock at the head of this show, there were plenty of stars that were on the roster, from Tyler James Williams to Tachina Arnold to Terry Crews. Taquan Richmond and Imani Hakeem work very well as Chris's younger siblings, and his best friend is played by Vincent Martella, also known as Phineas from Phineas and Ferb. With guest stars like J.B. Smoove, Jimmy Walker, Wayne Brady, and Orlando Jones, the show works very hard to keep black faces at the forefront, which might be one of the reasons that it did just as well as it did. Everybody Hates Chris as a show was received very well, despite the fact that it worked to pull back the veil on race and class issues that were present in the 80s, and even persist today, 40 years later. Even though it was shot unconventionally for a sitcom, with varying camera angles and shots, the show was selected by the American Film Institute as one of the best 10 television series of 2007, as it was highlighted for the real look that it gave growing up in America and pushing audiences to start conversations about microaggressions and overt expressions of classism and racism. Through the use of cutaways and jokes that were super memorable, dialogue and characters that were fleshed out and given arcs, and lessons that were delivered through the narration of Chris Rock, this show was nominated with the Golden Globe, Writers Guild, Emmys, and numerous other award shows, even going further to win the Young Artist Award in 2006 for Best Family Television Series, NAACP Image Award in 2007, and the Image Award in 2008 for Outstanding Writing in a Comedy Series. The success of the show propelled Tyler James Williams' career further, with him being in numerous movies, one of them being the cult classic Let It Shine, and other amazing shows like Dear White People and Walking Dead. Although similar to Everybody Hates Chris, most of his later roles showed James being typecast as a young black man who often gets the short end of the stick. Of course, the show didn't do bad things for Tichina Arlo and Terry Crews as well, with them both being very much featured in so many movies after the show came out. In this show, there's not a crazy amount of overt symbolism, like in the final episode where Chris's GED score is shown on the car outside where him and his family is eating, but there is symbolism when it comes to characters in the show, because one thing that Chris Rock does masterfully in the show is taking
We have 5 minutes left. I know people got
Yeah.
questions about that.
That's so awesome.
What did they wear? Okay, that's not TikTok. What is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's through YouTube. So yeah, they really. So I gave them kind of free reign. I gave them a rubric and some guidelines, but I told them they could use any software program they wanted to on their own times, and that's what he delivered. Right. So not every student did that. Some students did TikTok. Some students did PowerPoint, shorter visual, but he really got into it, as you can see.
Like a professional.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he really knows how.
But you can see how it is also the written analysis. Like
Right.
it's an analysis. So
Right.
critical thinking skills are
Right.
there with that.
Right, and he's bridging the 80s to modern day, comparing like Malcolm in the Middle. So it's not just about the TV show itself, but it's about the characters and about what it means in the context
Yeah.
of them, of the US.
Yeah.
And then you didn't have to read another paper.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So typically that would be delivered in a 2-page essay, and
Right.
Yeah.
so
You mentioned that you used the rubric. I'm just curious, did you use Brightspace's rubric tool?
I don't think I did.
Does it work with you on that?
Yeah, I don't think I did.
You did.
I don't think I did. So okay,
Okay.
it was last year. So this was from a year ago. So.
Yeah, you remember putting that together.
Yeah, and it will make it easier if you can do that too. Oh my goodness.
Do you find it harder to be critical of something like that than a paper? I find like I have such a hard time being as kind of harsh as I feel like I want to be with oral stuff or something like this than I would just a paper.
Right, that's a great question, and I do struggle with that sometimes. But I do like something like from that student Jacoby, he would be graded at a higher.
Oh yeah.
He would set the standard, right?
Sure.
So I would look at other students when they turn in. They do.
Why can't you be more like Jacoby?
Yeah, but I'm saying it too.
Yeah.
So I would say, how much time and effort? If I did this assignment, how long did it really take them to do this?
Yeah.
How deep did it go? I mean, he was talking about after the show, as the actor got older, he was talking about Chris Rock, his rise in the 80s. So he really put time. You could say, he
We'll
took.
talk about like what they're wearing and then the sets and the.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
How old Chris Rock was.
Right, and he compared it to Malcolm in the Middle,
Right.
and bringing it, he has to do that. So I would look at, okay, he took some time, and then I would look at another student and say, well, Everybody Hates Chris came out in 2007, and then it was this, and then that's.
I thought I misunderstood. I can't believe that show is 15 years
I
old.
know,
Yeah.
I remember watching it myself. But yeah, I try to do that, right? I know it's not the most fair thing to do, because it goes to your question though, because with an essay, I can read grammar, I can read stuff. Did they do all the right things? So here, it's a little bit subjective.
So Quincy, one thing I would encourage you to think about, I don't know if it really worked, but I'm throwing this out here, is if you think about like, okay, fairness, because you were fair, and you think about like transparent assignments, you've got a great example now. So sharing that with students now, and just saying, this is the level of work I'm looking for. And then there's not that fairness and subjectivity because they know this is the level I'm looking for.
Yes.
So I would encourage you to, and maybe you would say, okay, so nobody can do Everybody Hates Chris because, you know, because you don't want them to mimic it, right? But, and then nobody, you don't have to use YouTube, you don't have to do this, but this is the amount of time, the amount of extra comparisons, whatever.
Right. That's a great point. Good thing I am teaching this course again this fall.
Yeah.
So I do plan to show this to them, you know, probably right before midterm.
Yes,
to get them ready
this is your peer.
Yeah.
Is that kind of editing and everything part of the class or just
No,
something this student?
Exactly.
No,
No, that's the thing. I would probably have to add in like a workshop session.
Or tell students you don't have to do this.
Yeah, because I didn't tell him to, you know, edit. I didn't tell him about Photoshop. I didn't tell him about, you know, Adobe.
But I bet you don't have to do
YouTube has a new editing feature. I haven't looked at it, but they do have some editing that you can do in YouTube.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of students do use iMovie.
Yeah.
It's on Apple, you know, and a lot of our students use Apple products. So,
I did a couple semesters ago, it's similar, not similar, but you know, I just. Hi, Jay,
Thanks, Jay.
Jay, we'll be taking you in. If you have to go online for the class too, I know we're out of time. Let's do a big round because I can start. Both student evaluations meeting. But I did health psych, and they had to present their health behavior they were working on, and I said you can do it however you want to. It just can't be a paper. You can do a PowerPoint. You can do a TikTok. I had somebody do TikTok. You can do you can do a zine. One person did a zine. One person did an infographic. Visual. Do whatever you want. I didn't have to workshop anything because what happens is they were gravitated toward media they're comfortable with.
Yes.
Like this guy's clearly comfortable with that. And yeah. So I don't know that you would have to, and then think about for marketability skills, being able to say, I got this too.
Yeah, you can have that in their portfolio.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Especially for a mass conference.
Yeah.
Quincy, Mark, Katie, thank y'all so much for sharing your one small things with us. We appreciate it.